Hey everybody, my name is Emmett Sparling and I'm not very good at making these kind of videos. And I also just got glasses, so now I can actually see. Got the Mavic 3 Pro here. Been using this thing for maybe 3 or 4 months now, and I've got quite a bit to say about it, so let's jump right in. I've been using this for all sorts of different projects. I originally shot the launch video for this drone actually down in Brazil, in Rio. It's come a long way since then, just in terms of firmware updates, because when we use those drones in the launch videos, they're always still in the beta software versions, so they're never the actual drone that you get to buy yourself, because they're always still being tested when we're shooting with them. It's been a couple months now. I didn't want to do a review of the drone until I'd actually been able to fly with it for a while, with the actual software updates that have been coming out over the last couple months. So the main thing with this drone that sets it apart from the other ones in the Mavic lineup is the 3 lens options. So you've got the 24mm Hasselblad camera that's on the whole Mavic lineup. It's got incredible image quality. We're all used to that camera because that's the one that made us fall in love with the Mavic lineup in the first place. Then we move on to the new lens, which is this 3x 70mm f2.8 lens. It was the one part of the drone where I was like, they're just adding another lens. Is it going to be as good quality as that beautiful 24mm lens that we all love? And I'm glad to say that it is. It is fantastic quality. You can notice a slight difference between the 24mm and the 70mm, but it's honestly barely noticeable. I use it pretty much as I use the 24mm. It just gives you more unique shots because you're able to punch in, get more parallax, and you're not really losing much image quality. It allows you to just have more stuff to cut with in post. So when you're editing, you're not just dealing with these long drone shots. You can shoot that long established or wide drone shot, but then you can also punch in and shoot on that 70mm. Colors, they're still not quite as nice as that 24mm, but they're still very good and totally usable in pretty much any situation. The other nice thing about that 70mm lens is when you're in photo mode, you can switch to 48 megapixel RAW mode. So it's doing the same kind of thing as the Air 2S or the Mini 3, where it's stitching together a bunch of little images and then combining them into a 48 megapixel RAW image. Don't know how they're doing it to get a RAW image out of that, but it's pretty cool. That might actually not be how they do it, but DJI is doing some kind of sorcery where you're getting a 48 megapixel RAW image out of that 70mm lens. The downside to that 70mm, however, is you can't control the aperture like you can on the 24mm. So 24mm, you can change it from f2.8 to f11. You gotta just be a little more conscious of which ND filter that you're using while you're shooting. Then the last lens on here is the 7x 166mm f3.4 lens. This is the same focal length that was on the last Mavic 3, but quality's gotten a little bit better. Still not as good as the 70mm or the 24mm. I try not to use it as much as I can just because it's not quite at the same level of quality. That f3.4 aperture also doesn't let quite as much light in. You don't really have as much to work with there, but it's still really handy when you need to punch in that extra amount because the updated quality on that lens is still usable in most situations. One thing that I'm noticing in post-production when I'm editing that 166mm footage is it works really well in high contrast situations, and it's sharpest when you're closer to your subject. So when your subject's a bit farther away, it tends to look pretty soft. The lens isn't the sharpest thing, but when you get closer to your subject, it looks pretty good. Shooting into the light, having a silhouetted subject. So keep that in mind. Back to the other Emmett. So they say the battery life is about 43 minutes on their website. In person, like actual flight time is definitely a bit less, but it obviously varies how you're flying the drone. If you're just hammering it in sport mode, then obviously it's going to be lower flight time. But that being said, still fantastic battery life. I've got 4 batteries for it, and like I never run out of all 4 batteries in one night, like on a sunset shoot or something, for example, because each battery is still lasting like 38 to 40 minutes, so it's not like you're going to be hurting for battery life. I'd say this drone is perfect for more experienced storytellers that kind of want to take their footage up a notch in terms of having more options to work with when they're shooting, and also people who maybe want to get that higher production value but don't want to be spending like $30,000 on an Inspire 3 setup. Is it worth upgrading from the Mavic 3 Cine? I mean, if you're a full-time filmmaker and you're not impressed with the zoom on the original Mavic 3, then maybe it is something that you want to upgrade to. If you're happy with that wide-angle lens on the original Mavic 3 or the Mavic 3 Classic, which is the same thing, then maybe you don't need to upgrade because the wide lens on this one is the exact same thing. People are always going to be telling you to buy the new lens or the latest and greatest thing. So you just have to ask yourself, will this benefit my storytelling abilities? Will this benefit my drone shots? Which it will, but you have to also ask yourself how much you're doing that. Like, how much are you going to be shooting with that 70mm lens to help tell the stories? Was it overhyped? Not really. The zoom lens on it is fantastic. It's a great drone. I love using it. It's my favorite drone from DJI, and I'm going to keep using it until I guess a new one comes out. Thank you guys for watching this review video. I don't do very many of these, so I apologize if I missed a couple things. But let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you for watching.